What's up guys, it's Yeti here. In today's video, I want to show you guys my Ranger/Deadeye build in Path of Exile 2. This is going to be a very normal default bow and arrow type of gameplay class where you are trying to hit enemies from really far away without taking damage yourself. So the main idea behind this build is that we are going to be using a lightning arrow in combination with lightning rod. So let me just give you a quick demonstration. I drop a lightning rod on the floor, and then I am using my primary shot, which is lightning arrow, to, bounce the electricity off of these rods, and they do a crazy high amount of damage. Now, in this section of the video, I want to quickly cover the abilities that I took with this build and the support gems that I included in this build. Again, nothing here is set in stone because this is a very starter build. We are also in early access, so there's going to be a lot of patches coming out that will probably change the balance. I think currently Deadeye is the most played ascendancy as well, so we might see a nerf coming. I don't know if it's going to be towards lightning or poison. We'll have to wait and see. So Lightning Arrow is the first ability that we'll be using the most. I really highly suggest you to bind this onto your left click. In Path of Exile, generally speaking, you will not be using your normal auto attack that much. I still have it bound because sometimes I run out of mana. But if you do run out of mana, make sure to drink a mana flask because this is a pretty decently mana hungry build. So Lightning Arrow is going to be our first ability. And for the support gems, I took Chain, which is again good because the skills can chain +1 more time. And it comes with a negative that the skill does less damage. But as I previously said, you're not actually doing damage with this ability that much. The second support gem we took is Martial Tempo, which makes this ability have more attacks. When I unlock support gems level 2, I will probably go for elemental damage and armor piercing. Our second most important ability is Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod is an ability that we're placing on the ground and then bouncing our previous ability off of these, rods that are stuck in the floor. A really good idea is to have as many of these possible because they will, add to your damage multiplicatively. Without any of these, you are practically doing almost barely any damage. For the support gems, I took Scatter Shot and I took Conduction. Scatter Shot is going to make the ability do less damage, but spawn additional projectiles, which is really, really good because, as I said, more rods equals more bounces. The 20% less damage does not really matter. And we also took Conduction because it increases the chance to shock on these abilities. And, when you're playing a build that is doing lightning damage, it's also really good to take advantage of shocking. Herald of Buff is the next ability that is very important to this build. This one is a buff that is going to basically make enemies explode whenever they die. You can use your buff at all times. It costs 30 spirit, which I believe you should have active on default. And later down the line, when you kill more bosses, I think it's at the end of Act 2 or 3, you're going to have more spirit, so you can actually enable another buff as well. It's going to be Wind Dancer, but I'm actually not using this right now, so I don't want to talk too much about this, but it's just another recommendation and maybe a reason why you're not able to use 2 of them at once. So for Herald of Thunder, we took Lightning Infusion, which makes the attacks gain 5% of damage as extra lightning damage, and they will also deal less cold and fire damage, which is pretty irrelevant for us. I also took Stormcaller Arrow because this one actually summons a very big arrow from the sky that hits the target that you hit with this ability. Let me see if I can demonstrate it here on some terrain. But with that being said, after you hit this arrow, it's going to summon an arrow from the sky that's going to do quite a lot of damage, and it is decently good in single target. What I also did is I made this one deal more area damage, but have less area of effect. So I can really try to, as the gem says, concentrated effect. I can use this as a way to concentrate damage on specific monsters whenever you are dealing with some sort of prio target in a bigger pack. And now the last ability I want to mention here that is very important is called Freezing Salvo. This one summons icy missiles from the air, and these will do a lot of cold damage, and they are also going to slow down the monsters. And the support gems I use are called Hourglass, which makes it deal more damage and have a bigger cooldown, and also Acceleration. This one makes them have more projectile speed while it increases the cost. I think this is a really good ability because you just press it and you can do damage on demand, and you can also kind of CC the monsters right in front of you. And you know, if you do not have the ability to stack up lightning rods because the mobs are maybe too fast, freezing salvo is going to be a huge ability to use in that specific scenario, and it's going to save you. Now, I want to talk a little bit about gear. I won't be giving too many specifics because gear is a subject of change, especially because we are in the early version of early access. Generally speaking, you want to be running a bow with good, you know, flat damage and other stats like that. Like I, for example, got a bow that is doing 68% increased physical damage added to my accuracy rating, which is also very good for rangers, and it has +1 level to all projectile skills. I was told that this is one of the best buffs you can have on a weapon for ranger, probably for every class right now. It's also important to keep in mind that when you are using a bow, you should also have a quiver equipped. On my quiver, I have physical damage, I have increased damage with bow skills, increased critical hit damage. I also have crit damage bonus from attack damage and +7 dexterity. If you're ever wondering what a specific thing does in your items or abilities, hold down Alt to inspect it and mouse over, and this is going to define what an attack is. If I also open the skill menu, I can actually see that, let's say if I go here, escape shot is an attack. Lightning arrow is also an attack. You can see it right under the name. So let's see, lightning rod, also an attack. Perfect. This way we know that, you know, these things are benefiting us. Another way to check how much DPS you have with specific gear for a very quick comparison is you open up the skills menu. For me, the default key is G. And while you have this open, so let's say for us, we care about lightning arrow and lightning rod damage. We swap to a different bow and there we go. So lightning arrow is now 79 and 27, and the lightning rod is 27. If I switch, lightning rod goes up to 49, while lightning arrow goes to 141. This is a pretty clear indicator that my second setup of items is not good. Well, I don't even have a quiver equipped, and my bow has 0 gems in it right now, so it's obviously going to be worse. But you can use this kind of method to always check if your gear is better, if you found something better on the floor. There's no downside to equipping items in Path of Exile 2. And also just a general tip on all the other items, I would look out for, you know, obviously offensive and defensive stats. I would also look for potential extra lightning damage because you're building that, you know, anyways, and you have all these bonuses active. And, you know, maybe some mana increase or minus cost to spells so you're not running out of mana. Nothing here is, you know, really required. This is a very straightforward build, and I think that, you know, Ranger is a class that can pull this kind of build off very easily. I think a lot of other starter classes have the same thing with specific builds. Now, lastly, I want to talk about passive skills. You open up this menu by pressing P, that is default. And I quickly just want to show you the Deadeye nodes, and I want to show you the default Ranger ones after that. So obviously for Deadeye, I'm going into projectile speed, far shot, and I will later build into projectile speed again and endless munitions, because this is going to make this build summon additional projectiles, which sounds absolutely crazy when I'm playing a build that is actually built around having as many rods on the floor and shooting as many lightning arrows as possible to have that multiplicative damage effect. For passive nodes, I went down this way with, you know, increased projectile damage into honed instincts. I also made sure to pick up blur and eagle eye. These are, you know, your typical movement speed evasion rating kind of thing. I also have a lot of accuracy built into my passive skills. Vile wounds, for example, increases damage with hits against enemies affected by elemental alignments. I just took something that, you know, looked good, and I kind of tried to get as many agility, dexterity, and elemental effects going on. I also took hold focus. I took master fletching. I also took surging currents right here, because when you go up here on the tree, you have some more lightning stuff going on. I think harness of elements is going to be very, very good, and it's going to be an early pickup for me as well. Something that I was also potentially thinking about exploring with this starter build is going down here to this bow icon right here. And these passive nodes are very, very good when it comes to raw increase of damage that you're doing with your bows. And as I said, this is a build where you're going to be running your bow and arrow all the time pretty much. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you want to see more, make sure to press subscribe. I will also be streaming some of my Path of Exile gameplay on twitch.tv/Yeti, so make sure to check me out there as well. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.